All right. According to my computer, it's 10:03 a.m., and I'd like to call to order the teleconference meeting of the Board of Directors of Friday, March 26, 2021. Please note the meeting is being recorded. I would like to remind each of you to mute your speakers so that we don't get any background noise. Before we start, I would like to congratulate Directors Grossel, Hernandez, Hill, Stephanie, and Theriot on their recent reappointments to our board. Welcome back. Thank you for all your willingness to serve. And speaking of service, I recently made a number of appointments to committees, so some directors saw communications from me sent by the Secretary's office. There are still appointments to be made, so feel free to reach out to me directly after the meeting if you have any questions. So, Madam Secretary, we'll wait for Supervisor Melgar to join us, and we can let her take the oath of office. And while we're waiting, would you please proceed with the items on the agenda and the roll call?
Okay, I'm going to start with the roll call, and we'll confirm everybody on the line. Starting with Director Arnold.
Here.
Director Frederick.
Here.
Director Garbarino.
Here.
Director Grossel.
Here.
Director Hernandez.
Yes.
Director Hill.
Here.
Director Maston.
Here, and I was reappointed as well.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Director Melgar is, I'm sorry, Director Melgar's not here, but she's on my list. Director Rabbit.
Here.
Thank you. Director Rodoni.
Here.
Okay. Director Snyder.
Present.
Director Stephanie.
Present.
Second Vice President Cochran.
Here.
First Vice President Theriot.
Here.
And President Parr.
Yes.
Thank you. You have a quorum.
All
I'm going
right,
to confirm
thank you.
staff on the line. Sorry about that. I was going to quickly just run through and confirm staff. Dennis, are you here?
Present.
Joe Wire.
Yes.
Ava Bauer-Furbush.
Present.
Tim Manolia.
Good morning.
Steve Miller.
Present. Good morning.
Mona Babata. Not on the line. Jim Swindler.
Present.
Kelly Hopper.
Here.
And that confirms staff on the line. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Sorry for the interruption. Thank you
No
again,
problem.
everyone, for this morning, and we appreciate your continued patience. As usual, I'll be asking if board members have any comments or questions on the agenda items, and if there are questions, the Secretary will call on you accordingly, and after the discussions, we'll take the appropriate roll call vote, and again, remind you to mute your phones, and that each page of the meeting packet is numbered on the bottom right-hand corner so that you can follow it easily. Director Rabbit, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Not hearing from Director Rabbit. Do we have someone who's willing to? Are you there, David? Director Cochran, I know you're on. Would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes. Please
Thank
join
you.
me. I pledge allegiance to the flag
to the flag
of the United
States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible,
liberty, and justice for all.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Director Cochran. Madam Secretary, would you please continue the next item on the agenda?
We're going to move on to public comment for any and all items on today's agenda. So if anyone from the public wishes to speak on an item, you don't have to wait until that item comes up, and please speak to it now. Justine's on the line. She's assisting us today to moderate that public comment line. So Justine, please introduce our first speaker.
Good morning. Our first speaker is Kimberly Renee Gambella. Good morning. My name is Kimberly Renee Gamboa, and I am holding one of my favorite photos of my 18-year-old son, Kyle Emerson Gamboa. Kyle jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge on September 20th, 2013. I just wanted to thank you for your continued efforts in the ongoing construction of the Golden Gate Bridge suicide deterrent. Thank you very much.
Thank you again, Kimberly.
Our next speaker is Dave Rohde. Mr. Rohde?
President Parr, board members, managers, and staff, good morning. My name is Dave Rohde. I'm with the Climate Reality Project. As you know, I'm not a stranger to Golden Gate Bridge board meetings, and it may seem that I am obsessed with climate change. I do invest 20 hours a week or more reading climate change books, downloading research updates on climate solutions, studying reports on climate change policy, and sitting in on climate discussion webinars. Yes, I am that guy. I am obsessed with the greatest existential threat humanity has ever faced. I want one thing of whatever legacy I leave behind, and that is to be remembered for doing everything I could to ensure a livable future for my grandchildren and for your grandchildren. I know that you all, too, care about climate change, or you wouldn't have unanimously passed a climate emergency resolution 18 months ago. But I also know the breadth of your professional obligations prevent you from making climate change your sole obsession. That's why I propose a working committee, a task force, to address Golden Gate Bridge District climate solutions. I proposed this idea a year ago, but obviously it had to take a back seat to the COVID crisis. And because of that, I've also waited to reach out to you, Mr. Mulligan, about your green vision for Golden Gate Bridge operations. And there's a reason that I'm presenting the idea of a climate task force to the full board as well. Certainly, you board members who are San Francisco supervisors are aware of what's happened in the city. You all passed a climate emergency resolution 2 years ago as well. But instead of follow-through, we find that San Francisco's Department of Environment isn't even properly funded and, in fact, receives no money from the city's general funds. I don't want to see that happen here. I believe that the Golden Gate Bridge District is capable of setting the gold standard for climate action, but it will take a working task force and the full backing of the board of directors to achieve that. Let me be clear, I'm not an expert on climate solutions. I'm just an advocate who along the way has developed working relationships with experts. Researchers, for example, from the International Council on Clean Transportation, climate solution strategists like Michael Barnard from Clean Technica, and dozens of others. These experts address clean energy infrastructure, clean energy funding and policy, and the latest in clean energy technology. But there has never been a better time to take this step. Every climate activist I know is applauding President Biden's climate agenda. His cabinet choices alone signal 100% commitment to the environment and climate solutions, and he is already working on a multi-trillion-dollar package that will fuel climate energy infrastructure, create hundreds of thousands of clean energy jobs, ensure climate justice, and that will provide financial incentives to clean energy transit systems like the Golden Gate Bridge Transit District. Mr. Mulligan, I'll follow up with you next week, and board members, I trust that we have your full support. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Rohde.
Our next speaker is Frank Gleason. Mr. Gleason?
Good morning, directors. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I wanted to point out that today is a really good day in the sense that on the Finance Auditing Committee, Agenda Item 6, it shows that the $98 million shortfall is now down to zero, which is the best news for everybody, the employees, and actually everybody in the whole Bay Area. I know that a lot of the money was coming from the federal government, and that helped us out a lot. I wanted to point out that when you look at this Agenda Item 6 in the Finance Auditing Committee, on the second page, it's the employees from the bus division and then the employees from the ferry division. They contributed a lot. When you're looking at like $11 million in savings, it looks like it's $8.4 million from the ferry. I just would like to remind that the money came to help out employees and passengers and the bridge. And I was just hopeful that the Labor Relations Committee from the district will keep that in mind as these contracts are coming up this year. And congratulations to all those who got reappointed to the board. And I look forward to seeing a good year for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gleason.
President Parr, we're actually going to poll the line one more time because while the three speakers were speaking under public comment, a number of people joined the public line. So we're going to see if there's other speakers. Actually, Mr. Gleason was the last one that was on our list, but we know several more have joined since then. So bear with us 1 second while we do a quick check. Thank you. We have one additional speaker. So Justine, go ahead and introduce our speaker.
Certainly. Our next speaker is David Pilpel. David, go ahead.
Can everyone hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Great. David Pilpel, I really have nothing new to add this morning. I just wanted to refer to my comments from yesterday, and thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Pilpel. I assume that concludes it. More speakers on the line?
That concludes our speakers.
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Mulligan, is there anything you'd like to offer a response to?
I look forward to speaking with Mr. Rohde next week.
All right. Thank you very much. This concludes our public comments to the board. Madam Secretary, would you please continue with the next agenda item?
Item number 5 is to approve the consent calendar, including approval of the minutes from the committee and board meetings of February, as well as ratification of previous actions by the auditor controller. Consent calendar is located on pages 5 to 36 of your packet.
Thank you very much. Before we take our vote, are there any questions from board members on the consent calendar? Hearing the vote.
I'll move to approve the consent calendar, Secretary.
I'll second.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, I have a motion and a second. Would you please conduct a roll call vote?
Thank you. We're voting on item number 5, and we have a first from Director Theriault and Director Cochran is a second, starting with Director Arnold.
Aye.
Aye. Director Frederick.
Yes.
Director Garbarino.
Yes.
Director Grosball.
Yes.
Director Hernandez.
Aye.
Aye. Director Hill.
Yes.
Director Maskin.
Aye.
Aye. Director Rabbit.
Aye.
Director Rodoni.
Aye.
Director Snyder.
Aye.
Director Stephanie.
Aye.
Second Vice President Cochran.
Yes.
First Vice President Theriault.
Yes.
And President Parr.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion passes unanimously. And as I was doing my roll call, I saw Supervisor Melgar join us. So if you would like to pause for a second, President Parr, we can go back and do our swearing for the oath of office for Director Melgar.
Of course. Welcome, Director Melgar.
Thank you so much. I apologize. I was on the wrong line. Thank you.
No problem.
No, doesn't go there. No.
Terry, would you please begin with the introduction and oath of office?
Thank you. Supervisor Melgar, I think you have before you the oath of office verbiage I sent before the meeting. And when you're ready, I'm going to ask you to raise your right hand, and I'm going to assume that you're doing that because I can't see you, and repeat after me to recite the oath.
Okay.
Okay? Are you ready to begin?
Yes, I'm ready.
Great.
I'll repeat after you, please.
Yes. All right. I, Myrna Melgar, do solemnly swear
I, Myrna Melgar, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California,
to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservations or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
And during such time as I hold the office of Director of the Golden Gate Bridge Highway and Transportation District.
And during such time as I hold the office of the Golden Gate District Highway and Transportation District.
Thank you, and welcome to the district, Director Melgar.
Thank you so much.
Would you care to say a few words, Director Melgar?
Sure, thank you. I have been elected to District 7 as a supervisor newly in November and was sworn into January. My background is as an urban planner. Before I became the supervisor, I was the president of the Planning Commission. I live near 19th Avenue, which feeds right into Highway 1 in the Golden Gate Bridge District. I have friends and family who work for the district, and I am so grateful to be here with you and to try to solve the problems of transportation that we have in our region and to hopefully lend my skills and support to the work that we're doing. Thank you.
Well, we appreciate the fact that you would join us. We know that the supervisors are very, very busy, and we appreciate the fact that you would come to our meetings and join us in representing what we all think is our iconic bridge and its mission. And we look forward to being in the same room and being able to say hello to you.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much. You bet. We'll catch up with you at other meetings, I'm sure. And if you have a preference for committees that you would like to serve on, the way we do it here is that if you or have your aide contact me and we'll try to accommodate that.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Welcome. All right, Madam Secretary, would you please continue with the agenda?
Thank you. This brings us to item number 6A, which is the report of the General Manager. And that staff report can be found on page 37 of your packet. And Dennis Mulligan is on the line to present his report that includes an action item. Mr. Mulligan, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Secretary, Madam President, members of the board, members of the public. Within my written report, the action item appears on page 43. And the action item is I respectfully request that the Board of Directors ratify an emergency action that I took to approve a contract number 2021 F27, in an amount not to exceed $750,000 with Bay Ship and Yacht Company located in Alameda, California, for emergency float repair work on our Sausalito Ferry Terminal float. The district has a project that's nearing completion of design to replace the total landing in Sausalito, but in the interim, we need to have the existing float to be seaworthy. That float has been in use since the mid-1990s, and the passage of time coupled with recent weather events created some surface fractures and coating failures that compromise the watertight integrity of the float, hence the need for an emergency contract. The Public Contract Code and the district's authorized procedures for procurement, your ordinance and your manual, delegates to me the authority to take emergency actions when things are necessary, and it weighs the competitive bidding process. from a practical level, there's really only one facility in the Bay that could do this work within the time period we need, and that is Bay Shipping Yacht located in Alameda. So we have engaged them. Since this was not competitively bid, it will be district funded. And it's also important to note that with the ongoing pandemic, our ferry ridership is down 97%. So it's a time that we can do it without any impact to customers. We have implemented a bus bridge where the bus picks the passengers up at the ferry landing in the morning, takes them to the city, and then does the reverse in the evening. So we're replicating that service while we repair this float with buses. And we anticipate that this work will all be done within the next 2 months. With that, I can answer any questions on this item, and I respectfully ask that you ratify my action.
All right, thank you. I think we'll take that, and then you can go on with the rest of your general manager. Now, the motion is...
So moved.
I have a question.
Of course. Can you tell who that is that has a question?
Oh, it's Director Snyder.
Director Snyder, that's correct.
Thank you, Chris. Go ahead.
I was just curious, is the work being done on site, or is the floats being built at the shipyard?
The float was towed to the shipyard. It's taken out of the water, and they're doing the repair work to the float at the shipyard. The repair work may not be as significant as we initially anticipated now that we have it out of the water and we've started opening it up. But the repair work is being done on dry land in Alameda at the Bay Shipping Yacht facility.
And then who floats it back out and reattaches it? Is it the same company, or do you have contractors that do that?
The same company.
Okay. And there's nobody that...
no change.
I was just wondering about the bid process, if there's anybody... no other, like I know we had engaged like Power Engineering or any of those sorts of companies that they can't do that sort of work.
It's dry dock work. So the work is done with the float lifted out of the water. Power Engineering is doing a fantastic job at San Francisco Ferry Terminal for us, but they don't have a dry dock facility. The reattachment of the float is relatively de minimis work. There's existing piles there that it's connected to, and so those connections are easily removed. The float was towed to the facility, and when the work is completed, it'll be towed back, and the connections back to the float are, like I said, pretty de minimis.
Okay.
Thank you. Are there other
questions?
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, Madam Secretary, we have a motion and a second. If there are no more questions, are there any members of the public wishing to speak on this ratification?
We have no speakers on this item.
All right, hearing none, would you please conduct a roll call vote?
Thank you. We're voting on item number 6A1 in the GM's report, and we have a first from Director Garbarino and a second from Second Vice President Cochran. Starting with Director Arnold.
Aye.
Aye. Director Frederick.
Yes.
Director Garbarino.
Yes.
Yeah. Director Grosboll.
Yes.
Director Hernandez.
Aye.
Director Hill.
Yes.
Director Maskin.
Aye.
Director Melgar.
Aye.
Director Rabbit.
Aye.
Director Rodoni.
Aye.
Director Snyder.
Aye.
Director Stephanie.
Aye.
Second Vice President Cochran.
Yes.
First Vice President Interior.
Yes.
And President Parr.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. That passes unanimously.
Thank you. General Manager Mulligan, would you like to continue with your report?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Just a couple items I wish to highlight. First, the MS Sonoma is one of our ferry boats that's been in service since the mid-'70s, and it just went through a complete refurbishment where it was stripped down to the bare hull with all new interiors, all new electrical and mechanical components, plus an elevator and a bike escalator. So bikes get on one level, they can take their bike up the stairs. And so we're real pleased that they came back under the Golden Gate Bridge on March 13th. It's undergoing sea trials, and as our customers return, they'll welcome this newly refurbished vessel. Also, the Bridge District entered into a partnership agreement with our landlord, the National Park Service, the Golden Gate National Recreation Area, and their nonprofit partner, the Golden Gate National Parks Conservancy, in 2011. We did that to turn over our visitor services to them, recognizing that our core expertise is in transportation, bridge, bus, and ferry, and that visitor services is not our forte. And also to have them develop new programs, new merchandise, and to help celebrate the 75th anniversary. That's been a very successful endeavor. The agreement contemplated extensions, and if we did not do anything, there would be an automatic 10-year extension on the agreement. So I reached out to the parties and said that we would like to negotiate a new agreement, recognizing all the great accomplishments of the past and come up with new accomplishments. And so I have signed a temporary letter agreement to allow the continued operations while we figure out what the new agreements will be going forward. We envision continuing the relationship, but perhaps expanding the visitor experience and ultimately having some sort of museum or other interpretive areas nearby that tell stories about the bridge. Also, they're looking at reopening the Roundhouse for food services with a local vendor, a small business enterprise owned by a local woman who has another park location where they also sell coffee and food. So I just want to make you aware that we'll have some agreements coming to the board in the coming months. One will be between the district and the Park Service and the Conservancy, and then a separate one between the Bridge District and the Conservancy for visitor services. Moving on to COVID-19 pandemic, there's been numerous news articles recently that have talked about how traffic is returning. And while some of those news articles show a picture of the Golden Gate Bridge, it doesn't show a picture of the Golden Gate Bridge filled with traffic. And it's true that in some of the other corridors in the region, such as the Bay Bridge corridor, traffic has returned. It's important to note that bridge traffic, though, has been hovering only at about 2/3 of our pre-COVID levels for many, many months now. And at this juncture, we have not seen an uptick in traffic yet. We have experienced and been living through now for a year a precipitous drop in travel in the corridor, which has impacted our finances, and we're very appreciative of all the federal money we've received. During the week of March 7th, bus ridership was down about 82%, so we only carried 18% of our normal bus ridership, and our ferry ridership was down 97%. We only carried 3% of our normal ferry ridership. And bridge tolls are our principal source of revenue in addition to the transit fares, and so revenues for that week were down $1.5 million. That's for a single week. So as vaccinations become commonplace, things will reopen, and we're really excited about that. We're working with all of our partners at the other transit agencies, as well as the business community, so that as things reopen, we'll provide transit service to meet our customers' needs. But we're not quite there yet, but we're getting ready for it. In terms of that huge drop in revenues, I might say the worst weeks of the pandemic, we were losing over $3 million a week. We're fortunate the federal government has provided money to transit agencies. And earlier this week on Wednesday, MTC took an action where they awarded about $805 million to various transit agencies throughout the Bay Area, and the Bridge District received $39.4 million of that new money. That will bring the total federal funding that we have received since the start of the pandemic to $111 million. And based on our current rate of expenditures, that will allow us to make payroll through the end of the calendar year. However, we will be adding transit service back as our customers return, and so our burn rate will increase, so that CRISA money that MTC allocated on Wednesday will not last through the end of the year as we add transit service. Fortunately, President Biden has signed into the law the American Rescue Plan. That'll provide additional funding for transit agencies. At this juncture, we do not know how much we will receive, but in the coming months, we will learn more, and we'll report back to you in terms of what the impacts of that are on the district's finances. Other things going on is that you may recall that on February 21st, the district, along with Marin County and their vendor Curative, opened a mass vaccination site at the Larkspur Ferry Terminal. I'm pleased to report that that is going extraordinarily well. Next week, we'll be doing over 1,100 people per day through that site. They can do several times that when they get more vaccines, which they're looking forward to. But it has 13 drive-through locations, plus a 14th site for bicycles and pedestrians and paratransit vans. And it's being staffed by Bridge District staff whose jobs are otherwise impacted by the pandemic, and county staff, as well as by their vendor. So I want to do a big shout out to all of our staff that are working at that site, directing traffic and helping it smoothly operate. Since we're speaking about vaccines, I'm pleased to inform you that all district employees with occupational exposure to COVID-19 have been given the opportunity to be vaccinated. And fortunately, the vast majority of them have taken us up on that. So as of a week ago, we had vaccinated the first dose to almost all of our on-site employees at Bridge, Bus, and Berry. As the rate of COVID-19 infections declined, coupled with increased rates of vaccinations, our public health officials are starting to ease restrictions on businesses and community activities contained in the shelter-in-place orders. For example, counties in the red tier, such as Sonoma County, allow indoor dining at 25% capacity. While once counties enter the orange tier, such as San Francisco and Marin, due to the community reduction in the risk of COVID infection, restaurants and movie theaters are now allowed to operate at 50% capacity indoors. Recognizing these changing dynamics and wanting to understand how they impact our business, the district, along with Marin Transit and SMART, are in discussions with Marin Health and Human Services and the Marin Public Health Officer regarding the appropriate capacity for transit once Marin County enters the orange tier. All of our transit employees have been offered vaccinations. All of our passengers are required to wear face coverings at all times. We have free face masks and hand sanitizer on our buses, and we have shields protected drivers. So the question is, once Marin County remains in the orange tier for 30 days, and the COVID-19 risk associated with riding transit will be greatly reduced. So we're in discussions about potentially changing the social distancing requirements from transit from 6 feet, which is about 25% ridership capacity, to 3 feet, which would be a 50% ridership capacity on buses, ferries, and rail in Marin County. Such discussions would not contemplate until 30 days after Marin enters the orange tier, which they just did. The thinking is that counties historically have bounced in and out of tiers, so we'd want to see how that goes. This change, if it's approved by our county health official, would help greatly with pass-ups on transit, and it would accommodate the increased ridership likely to accompany the easing restrictions on businesses and activities. The 50% capacity for transit, while the counties in the orange tier, would mirror the capacity for many indoor at businesses such as restaurants and movie theaters. So we think it's prudent, and we're having those discussions, and I will keep the board informed with respect to how those go. And we're starting with Marin County because that's where Marin Transit in particular is experiencing a lot of pass-ups. But after that, we'll be having similar discussions with the other counties in our service area. I would next like to talk about some recognition of employees and board members. First, I'd like to acknowledge the retirement of bus operator Danny Hollins. Danny retired from the district on March 1st after 25 years and 3 months of service with the district, and we wish Mr. Hollins a long and happy retirement. I also want to acknowledge the retirement of our chief mechanic at the bus division, James Cantrell, who retired after 22 years and 3 months of service with the district. Prior to the service with the district, he served in the United States Marine Corps, and he worked at Samtrans and Gray Lines as a bus mechanic. I want to recognize 30 years of service for Mr. Edwin Lowe from our ferry division. Edwin Lowe has been a terminal assistant for 30 years, and we're very appreciative of all the great work that Mr. Lowe has done. Moving down the years of service, I'd like to acknowledge the 25-year service award of Karen Buchanan. She works in our workers' compensation and liability claims area. She celebrated 25 years of service with the district on March 18th. Of note, she was named the Employee of the Month in May of 2011. She is a proud San Francisco native and a graduate of Lowell High School. Then I will mention in passing that on March 1st, I had the pleasure of celebrating 20 years of service with the district. And I want to thank the board for your willingness to employ me. My entire time has been as an officer of the district, where I serve at your pleasure. And I look forward to many, many more years serving the district. Also receiving 20-year awards this month is Matthew Richards, bus mechanic in the bus division. He started on March 8th, 2001, 7 days after me. and a 20-year service award to one of our building and maintenance mechanics in the bus division, Michael Schultz. In his spare time, Mr. Schultz participates in Cub Scout activities with his sons, and he pursues his interest in old Chevrolets. Now that we're done with the 20-year awards, we'll come to the 10-year awards. And I'm very pleased to announce that Director Michael Theriault celebrated 10 years of service with the district on March 11th. Director Theriault took his office joining the district on March 11, 2011. He's one of 9 members on the board serving the city and county of San Francisco. He has an esteemed career in the labor movement in San Francisco. He was the head of the San Francisco Building and Construction Trades Council for many years, and he's a retired iron worker and a member of Iron Workers Local 377. So he cares greatly about the interests of the nuts and bolts of the bridge. He cares about our facilities, and he's an avid bicycle rider and a believer that bicycles are a necessary component of transportation. And so I want to acknowledge his 10 years of service. Next, I'd like to acknowledge 10 years of service for Director Sabrina Hernandez. She celebrated her 10-year anniversary on March 13th, 2021. Director Hernandez served as the president of this esteemed board from August 2017 to September 2019, longer term than any other president in the history of the board. She also has the distinction of becoming the first openly lesbian woman of color to serve as president of the board. She has unwavering support, and she is a fabulous advocate for all the employees of the district. She always acknowledges and respects their hard work, and she strives to ensure that we have a safe and fair working environment for all employees. We're very fortunate to have her, and our employees are a huge fan of Director Hernandez. Finally, for recognition is the Employees of the Month, and this month I'm using a plural. The Employee of the Month Committee collectively recognized and selected several employees who led the 2020 Virtual Health and Wellness Expo for the district. This esteemed award goes to Artemis Davenport, who's our DVE Program Administrator, Jeremy Holt, who's a System Administrator, and Benjamin Valdez, a System Network Administrator. It's a tremendous undertaking to put together such a fair in the COVID world. They're very creative, and everyone recognizes them and thanks them tremendously for this effort. That concludes my report. I'm available to answer any questions that you might have.
Wow, that was some report today. Thank you. Welcome for 25 years to you, Dennis, and for 10 years to the 2 board members. That's a distinction that not many people share. Excuse me. Are there any questions related to the General Manager's report?
Madam President, Director Rabbit.
Yes, of course.
And first off, I apologize for being AWOL earlier. I did get a call from our state senator regarding a COVID item that we had at our briefing this morning and needed to take that, so I apologize on that. I will say that, Dennis, to your points regarding the health officer of Marin, I offer the same thing with the health officer of Sonoma County. Sonoma County, while still in the red, we anticipate getting into the orange probably in about 3 weeks' time. We are the great recipient of being graded on a curve because as the state increases vaccination statewide, they'll revise the case rate criteria, the adjusted case rate criteria, and we think that's going to happen within 3 weeks' time. So whatever we need to do to make sure that we're in compliance there, and I know we're dealing with the same thing with SMART as well, so I just wanted to put that out there as well. I look forward to the American Rescue Plan coming through MTC. Was happy to, I think we were at 2.2 billion or more than 2.2 billion overall between the CARISA and the CARES Act allocations to public transit within the Bay Area going forward. So that and being a newly appointed programming and allegations chair for MTC will obviously keep us in the mix in a good way. And appreciate too, as I said yesterday, your advocacy, Dennis, always pushing for the what's in the best interest of the bridge, but also acknowledging that there's the other agencies within the whole entire Bay Area making the system work. So I just wanted to make note of that, and thank you.
Thank you, Director Rabbit. Are there any other comments or questions? Hearing none.
President, I have a comment.
Yes, certainly. Director Hill, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Golden Gate is known for leadership in many areas with transportation, beginning with auto tolls, the lane separation, the suicide barrier, and now the first that I'm aware of, escalator permitting bicycles. This is a strong precedent for urging bicycles on other facilities, beginning with BART and other transportation facilities in the Bay Area. And I can't express strongly enough how important this is to the bicycle community to have this ability for people who are not only young and strong to be able to use stairs, but also for people who can't handle their bicycles as comfortably going upstairs. And with the addition of electric bicycles, it makes it far more necessary. So I want to congratulate the leadership for this foresight. I appreciate it very much, as does the bicycling community. Thank you.
If I may, Madam President, as a follow-up, kudos to Ferry Manager Jim Swindler and his very, very talented staff, particularly Damon Brewer, for coming up with a very, very creative solution to encourage bicycle use on our ferry boats.
All right, thank you for that. Are there other comments or questions? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, would you please introduce the next item?
Thank you. Item 6B is the report of the attorney. The staff report is found on page 55. And on the line, we have Kim Manolius to present his report. Mr. Manolius, go ahead.
Thanks, Amaret. Good morning, everyone. My written report is before you, as Amaret said, and I'm happy to take any questions on it. Did want to alert you that we will have a closed session at the end of the meeting for a conference with our labor negotiator, pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. And again, happy to take any questions.
All right, thank you very much. Madam Secretary, could I double check on, are we having a closed session or not?
Oh, hang on 1 second. I'm going to pull in the general manager. I believe there is no closed session today. I know Mr. Manolius just stated that, but I believe there is no closed session taking place today. But let me have the general manager jump on and confirm that.
We'll pause a minute while we clear that up.
I apologize for the misunderstanding. We did have a Labor Advisory Committee meeting this morning, and I apologize for my miscommunication with our General Counsel, but there is no need for a Labor Advisory, a Labor closed session.
All right, so there is no...
Sorry about that.
No...
Okay.
As long as we get it straightened out, that's no problem. All right, Madam Secretary, then would you please introduce the next item?
Thank you. Item 6C is report of the Chief Engineer, and that report can be found on page 57 of the board meeting packet, and Ava Bauer-Furbish is on the line to present her extensive report. Ava, go ahead and start.
Thank you, Amaret. Madam President, directors, my written report is before you, and I would like to take a few minutes to cover two items, bring to your attention. First is the suicide deterrent construction, and second, I would like to provide you with a brief update on the progress of our investigation of the causes of the noise that the bridge is now sound that the bridge is emanating during windy days, and our progress with finding the solution to the problem. So, with respect to the suicide deterrent construction, the fabrication of the outstanding elements, skill elements continues, and namely the contractor or fabricator is working on fabrication of the vertical railing that will be, this is a tall vertical railing that will be installed on the North Anchorage housing to form the suicide deterrent system at that location. Also, there is great progress with the fabrication of the net itself. The work in the fabrication shop progressing very smoothly, and we expect another shipment of the completed net, fabricated net, to the contractor's Richmond yard next week. The contractor is in the field. The contractor is focusing on installing additional work access platforms on the suspension bridge and relocating the platforms that are no longer needed in certain locations along the suspension bridge to the new location. Also, what's important to point out that the contractor is continuing installation of the net support on the north approach viaduct. And finally, the contractor is planning in April to begin work on the south side of the suspension bridge, which will require access from the east sidewalk during the daytime. So we are coordinating not only with the contractor and by reviewing contractor's work plan, how they plan to stage themselves to cause the least disruption to pedestrians and bicyclists on the east sidewalk, but we're working also closely with the sergeant's office. So with this, I would be happy to answer any questions that the board may have for me with regard to this report.
All right, thank you. And then we'll talk about the noise after that.
Yes.
Are there any questions about the suicide deterrent progress? All right, hearing none, go ahead. Ms.
Thank you.
Bauer.
Thank you. So in July last year, the board authorized engagement of the world foremost outstanding expert in bridge aerodynamics and acoustics, and the district hired those experts to perform a study of the sound phenomenon that we're dealing with on the windy days. So the studies have been performed to better understand the specific conditions and circumstances that cause the sound to occur, and to investigate feasible measures to dampen or eliminate the sound. So part of this undertaking is wind tunnel testing and acoustic evaluation of full-scale specimens of the new bridge railing and fairing. After completion of the full-scale specimen fabrication, the first phase of wind tunnel testing was conducted from October 23rd through November 5th last year. The testing confirmed that two dominant tonal frequencies that compose the sound are about 440 hertz and about 1050 to 1090 hertz. Also, several approaches to damping or eliminating the sound were tested. And one specific measure consisting of installation of small plexiglass shapes on the edges of railing tickets, this measure produced desired noise damping and elimination. The consultant tested different shape design, and different arrangements of installing such shapes on the tickets. And right now we are working, the district engineering staff and the consultant working together on feasible ways of the shape installation. During the week of March 29th, means next week, the consultant will test sound damping effectiveness of shapes made of steel, because we found that using the steel material will be easier for installation and it will be more compatible with the steel material of the railing. So the final wind testing of the preferred metal clip option is scheduled for the end of May. So with this, I'll be happy to answer any question the directors may have for me.
Thank you. Are there questions for the Chief Engineer?
Madam President, this is Bert Hill. I have a question.
Yes. Go ahead, Bert.
It's a related question. In terms of the wind effect of the bridge rails, are you noting any kind of increase in injuries or problems with bicyclists, or have had to close the west side on very windy days? Any effects that we should share with us?
I can speak to the injuries. That's on the operational side. We have not seen an uptick in injuries. If you look at this month's GM report, actually, we had no bicycle injuries on the bridge sidewalks for this month. But we are monitoring injuries on the sidewalk. We report them out to the board every month, and we have not seen any change in injuries since Ava's contractor started installing the wind retrofit a little over a year ago.
Have you had to close it for wind at all?
We have not had to close it for wind.
Okay, thank you.
This is Director Groswell. I had a question.
Okay. Go ahead, Dick.
I apologize. I missed a little bit of that, Ava. But what is the next step with respect to the sound? That's sort of what I missed.
Right. So we believe that we have a solution, but we want to make sure that this solution is constructible. So it will be what we're working right now is the idea of installing shapes made out of steel, of thin steel, on the edges of the pickets, and it will be on the outside edge, or maybe both on the inside and outside, depends what the final test of this idea will show. Of course, we also working on the cost aspects. We want to provide the solution that it's not only feasible, but it's not extraordinarily expensive. One important side of it, it has to be constructible and it has to be easy to maintain. We plan to go for the final test at the end of May, and after we compile the results of the test, I will bring to the board the formal public presentation of the whole testing program, as well as any recommendation that I find beneficial to eliminate the sound.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Secretary. Yeah, thank you.
Certainly.
A couple of quick things. With regard to the wind and the new rail on the west side, I want to tell you, Director Hill, that I've been across there a couple times on the east side in high winds and have not found it appreciably worse than it was before. It's not bad. And I'm also a little amused on the sound issue. As some of us know from earlier discussions, the one frequency at 440 hertz is what's called by musicians concert pitch. It's the A above middle C. But I came upon a recording of the sound recently. I think it was on Twitter, and I heard not an A above middle C, but what sounded like a high C. And in fact, that high C is just about 1050 hertz, which accords with the second pitch that the consultant found. So just amused by that. Thank you, Ava.
Thank you, Dr. Torrey.
So we have a musical bridge. We knew that. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ms. Bauer-Furbish. Are there any other questions related to her report? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, would you please continue with the agenda?
Thank you. Item number 8A is the report of the Finance Auditing Meeting of Thursday, March 25th, 2021. The summary of recommendations for this meeting is found on page 91 of your packet.
Thank you. Please let me remind the board and the public that this report was presented and discussed at the Finance Auditing Committee meeting yesterday, and is brought to the board today as a recommendation from that committee. Chair Rabbit, please begin your committee's report.
Thank you, Madam President. The Finance Auditing Committee met yesterday and is recommending authorization of board agenda item number 8A1 to approve actions as detailed in the staff report relative to the Low Carbon Transit Operations Program to authorize the general manager or his designee to execute and submit related certifications and assurances and agreements on behalf of the district, and approve submission of a grant application for the new vessel acquisition project in fiscal year 2021, and I so move.
Thank you. I have a motion on the item. May I have a second, please?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Before we take our vote, are there any board members with questions or comments on this item? Hearing none, are there any members of the public wishing to speak on this item?
We have no public comment on this item.
All right. Thank you, Madam Secretary. Would you please conduct a roll call vote then?
Thank you. We're voting on item 8A1 with a first from Director Rabbit and a second from Second Vice President Cochran, starting with Director Arnold.
Aye.
Director Frederick.
Yes.
Director Garbarino.
Yes.
Director Grosval.
Yes.
Director Hernandez.
Aye.
Director Hill.
Yes.
Director Maston.
Aye.
Director Melgar.
Aye.
Director Rabbit.
Aye.
Director Rodoni.
Aye.
Director Snyder.
Aye.
Director Stephanie.
Aye.
Second Vice President Cochran.
Yes.
First Vice President Theriault.
Yes.
And President Parr.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. That passes unanimously.
Chair Rabbit, do you have anything further to report?
No, Madam President, that concludes my report.
All right. Thank you, Chair Rabbit. Madam Secretary, would you please continue with the next item on the agenda?
Thank you. We're going to move on to item 10 since there are no addresses to the board under item 9. Item 10A is the discussion and possible action to terminate the suspension of board procedural rules and policies for COVID-related emergency action. Mr. Mulligan's brief staff report's on page 93, and if you have any questions, he's here to answer them.
Thank you. Are there any board members who have a question for Mr. Mulligan?
This is
Hearing
Patty.
none,
I so move.
Oh, go ahead, Patty.
I so move.
Oh, thank you. All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second, please?
Second.
Yes, I'll second the motion to continue this to the next board meeting under special business.
All right, thank you. Are there any other questions, comments? That concludes the discussion on this item. Before we continue, is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this item?
We have no speakers on this item.
All right, hearing none. Would you please conduct a roll call?
Thank you. We have a first from Director Garbarino, and actually I'm going to acknowledge a second from Director Fredericks. I know Director Theriault, you had mentioned it, but I heard her voice right before you, so I will have her as the second, starting with Director Arnold.
Yes, this is Judy Arnold, but could you just explain a little bit more about what this item says before?
Certainly. This is Dennis, the General Manager. About a year ago, in the beginning of the pandemic, the rule took an action to temporarily suspend its rules and policies to allow timely emergency actions to address the ongoing pandemic, with the understanding that those actions would be consistent with state, federal, and local public health mandates. The public health orders that are still in effect, they're periodically modified to impose or ease restrictions and requirements on community activities and businesses. So on a daily basis, we respond to changing conditions and we modify our operations. And so the item before you is to allow this to continue for another month and to revisit whether you should continue this delegation of authority or not.
Perfect.
So if you vote yes, it means that you're okay continuing with the delegation as it currently exists and to revisit this matter at your next regularly scheduled meeting.
Okay, perfect. So this does not do away with the rules committee, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Just checking. All right, I vote aye.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. We're returning to the vote on item 10A. We have an aye from Director Arnold, and I'm going next to Director Frederick.
Yes.
Yes. Director Garbarino.
Yes.
Director Grosval.
Yes.
Director Hernandez.
Aye.
Aye. Hang on. Okay. Director Hill.
Yes.
Thank you. Director Meston.
Aye.
Director Melgar.
Aye.
Director Rabbit.
Aye.
Director Rodoni.
Aye.
Director Snyder.
Aye.
Director Stephanie.
Aye.
Second Vice President Cochran.
Yes.
First Vice President Theriault.
Yes.
And President Barr.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. That motion passes unanimously.
Thank you for that. Item 13 is communications, and if you would like a copy of the actual communications, please contact the district secretary's office. We've reached the end of the agenda, and there being no further items presented to the board, I'd like to thank everyone who joined us for today. May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting, please?
I'll vote to adjourn.
All right, and may I have a second?
Second.
All right. Is there anyone opposed? Hearing no opposition, we'll be adjourning today's meeting in the memory of the victims from the recent shootings in Atlanta, Georgia, in Boulder, Colorado, and in memory of Phyllis Moylan, the beloved wife of our friend and colleague John Moylan. Please join me in a moment of silence. This concludes the meeting of the Board of Directors. Thank you again. The time is 11:05.